Welcome back to the channel. We're on Black Belt Secrets. As promised, I'm coming back to talk to you about things that I found interesting in the news just recently. This one, you can't quite believe it. This is about who it was that Prince Harry was interested in interviewing for a podcast that apparently he was pitching to senior producers at podcast companies, which may or may not have been Spotify. Now, apparently all of this came about during the lockdown and various other things, these discussions, that is, according to a source on Bloomberg, which I'll come to in a moment. And that's not a strange thing at all, because lots of celebrities, in fact, who would otherwise have been traveling about to various events all over the world, found themselves stuck at home and therefore found themselves doing podcasts and anything else that they could do whilst sitting at a desk. I'm no stranger to that because the courts closed immediately upon lockdown. And so I started my channel then, Black Belt Barrister, which if you're not familiar with that, I don't know how you got here, but welcome. And Black Belt Barrister is linked in the description below, where I help you to understand law. Not to be confused with this channel, which is Black Belt Secrets, where I talk to you about all sorts of other things. But let's get to that article, shall we? So let's look at the Bloomberg article that I found, which was Prince Harry's podcast pitch. According to a senior source in this article written by Ashley Carman, this senior source said they spoke with people with knowledge of the situation about what ideas Prince Harry floated around and why none of them ever came to fruition. They requested anonymity because they weren't authorized to speak about his work. Spotify declined to comment, as did Archwell Audio. Archwell being Harry and Meghan's company, of course, after Archetypes has just ceased with Spotify. This source said Harry spoke with multiple producers and production houses to discuss possible shows. Along the way, this source said Harry listened to various ideas from others, but mostly stuck by his own, including one about childhood trauma, which would not be entirely unusual given the sort of strange TV show that he did about his own therapy session whilst promoting the book Spare, but by the by. The concept, wait for it, Harry would interview a procession of controversial guests such as Vladimir Putin, Mark Zuckerberg, and Donald Trump about their early formative years and how those experiences resulted in the adults they are today. Harry also had an idea, these people said, for a show centered on fatherhood. Another one would have tackled major societal conversations, episode by episode, ranging from climate change to region. For the latter, Harry hoped to have Pope Francis on as a guest. So all over the place, it would seem, but talking about all sorts of worldwide issues, starting with childhood trauma with Vladimir Putin, Mark Zuckerberg, and Donald Trump. Now, I'm not sure which of those would be the least likely to want to give an interview about their childhood. Whether or not it included childhood trauma, I don't know, and we probably won't know. But even if they were minded to give an interview, I doubt it would be to discuss any sort of early difficulties, because certainly someone like Vladimir Putin would see that as some sort of weakness, surely, and at least open up to criticism and in one sense or another weaken his position. I can't see that going any other way. Out of all of them, I suppose I would say Donald Trump would be the most likely to want to do an interview like that about his early formative years. It would probably be in true Donald Trump style and probably not include anything about childhood trauma, not to say that he had any. Second in line, in my guess, would be Mark Zuckerberg. Mark Zuckerberg tends to be fairly open about doing these sort of things, going around the world talking about various experiences, even seeing one show where he learnt to speak Chinese to address a Chinese audience. I thought that was quite impressive. And for what it's worth, my dear wife, who is obviously Chinese, thought that was quite impressive. Her channel, by the way, if you like Chinese cooking, is linked in the description below. It's amazing. Third in line, in my view, would be Vladimir Putin. Now, of course, I think everybody would probably watch it if someone did an interview with Vladimir Putin, especially about his early formative years, for all sorts of different reasons. But I just can't see that that's going to happen, or was ever going to happen. Of course, none of these podcast ideas from Prince Harry ever got off the ground, including those on fatherhood, childhood, or any major societal conversations. I would actually have been quite interested in hearing what he had to say about fatherhood with other people. Obviously, we heard a lot about it from his own perspective in his book and in the Netflix series, but none of these obviously ever came to be. So let me know in the comments, would you have listened to any of these podcast episodes Would you have been interested in Harry interviewing the likes of Vladimir Putin, Mark Zuckerberg, and Donald Trump, and all sorts of other people on these conversations worldwide and all these groundbreaking topics and issues? I would be interested to know whether you would listen to any of those as a podcast, of all things. I'm just quite dubious as to, quite frankly, whether this was ever a real discussion. But it's reportedly a real discussion, according to Bloomberg and according to the sources that they've linked in there, albeit they've stayed anonymous. Now, of course, journalists can keep their sources confidential. Anyone that gets a source for news would not be held in contempt of court by not revealing and refusing to reveal their sources of that information. And in the perspective of England and Wales, that is the Contempt of Court Act 1981, Section 10, the sources are protected, and it is not contempt of court to divulge where those sources came from. So that's another piece that I found quite interesting just recently. I promised you I would come back and give you my open thoughts. This is not rehearsed. This is not practiced. It's certainly not scripted. In fact, none of my videos are scripted. I do look up the law from time to time to check that what I'm saying is at least vaguely accurate. I'm underpinning it, obviously, but I don't script videos. In fact, YouTube, when I went to visit them in London last year, was quite surprised that I don't script my videos. I just can't do that because I suppose going into court and doing live hearings, you can't script. You can prepare, but you can't script. In fact, when I'm teaching at bar school, and this actually prompts me to do some more videos on bar school. Let me know in the comments if you would want to have virtual lessons here with me to you as though you were at bar school and deliver virtual lessons on advocacy, court advocacy, conferencing, and all those sorts of things. I know my students do. Let me know if you as the general audience would like those videos and I'll come back and do those. But as I tell students, you cannot script. You cannot write out questions. For the simple reason, if you get partway through and the witness goes off on a tangent and you lose your place in your script of questions, you can't get back to your script of questions, and therefore you're off on a tangent with the witness. Before you know it, you're all over the place and you don't get to the point. And if you don't get to the point, it's not an effective cross-examination or even chief examination for that matter. That's with your own client. Cross-examination is obviously with a witness for the opposing party, but you cannot get to your point if you go off tangent off a script, much like I am now. Ironically, this is not scripted, but I hope you found that interesting. Let me know if you are interested in those other videos, particularly the legal angle of teaching you what I would teach at bar school. I would be interested in doing that if you're interested in watching it. If you are interested in watching that, smash that like button and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. And just before I forget, I've just popped up a blog where I'm going to take my videos from Black Belt Barrister, condense them and rewrite them into some sort of readable blog format. It's not just going to be a transcript, it's going to be a blog format where you can read and digest. If you are the reading type and you like to read and digest things, you'll find that at blog.blackbeltbarrister.com. Incidentally, you'll find my course materials at blackbeltbarrister.com. I don't often push it and promote it. It is there, it's available. But the blog is going to be at blog.blackbeltbarrister.com. Check that out, and thank you once more, and see you next time.